Hi, good evening. Good evening. Welcome to Mike at Night. And once again, we are on every Thursday at 9 o'clock. Pleased to have you all. Those who have been joining us, we nice. Always happy to have you all. As you know, that we have a program running, and this program is to bring you topical issues that we feel is going to help you in one way or the other. Of course, we want to thank our sponsors for being with us regularly for this program. This evening, we're going to talk about the gender divide, the gender tier, the gender war. And we have someone who is going to be chatting with us and giving us some good information on that. Her name is Major Merna Riley desVignes. And I think she's quite competent to be able to share with us in this. And I really looking forward to it and anticipating that it will be a successful program. I suspect we'll have to run another program subsequent to this, because it will never be ended on this program, because there's so much to talk about it. Let me also say that the topic for the poll this evening is whether we're asking you to tell us whether 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock is a better time for you. So you just, when the poll comes up, which is going to come up very soon, just answer whether 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock is a better time. We are looking to rationalize the time. Same Thursday, but 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Yes, and so we're asking you to do that. So I want you to stand by. We're going to go to some commercial now, and then we're going to come right back and get straight into our discussion. This is Mike at Night.
In today's society, we need security that is trustworthy, reliable, and efficient. Rapid Response Security Services Limited is here to meet all your needs. Since 1990, this security company leads while others follow, with a commitment to provide satisfaction in service. We specialize in modern and professional security systems. Contact us at 639-3675 or 660-7418, or visit us at the Blue and White Building, Mount Mary, Scarborough, Tobago.
Double B Supermarket, 60 to 62 Government House Road, Scarborough, Tobago. All items reasonably priced, friendly staff. If you don't believe me, you call them 639-5329. If you ask them any question, they'll tell you Jesus is the answer.
Don't let the weather of the day dictate your pace. I stayed cool every time I got into my vehicle, and you can too. At Tow School Center of 31 Gaskin Bay Road, Bonaccord, they specialize in auto air conditioning with parts and services catering to your car's needs. Call and ask for tows at 660-8777 or 788-3535. Tow School Center, where a comfortable ride is a cool ride.
And welcome back to Mike at Night. And we're going to be going into a discussion, repairing the gender tier. And I want you to know, one time, let me give you the telephone number, 387-7553, 387-7553. If you have a question, you can post it on the Facebook. You can send us a WhatsApp at that number. Of course, you'll need to program into your phone, Mike at Night, in order for you to, first of all, be able to send us any of your WhatsApp. Let me just say hello to a few people who are on. Rosemary Rampasad Lizama, thank you very much. Sandra Stewart, blessed night to you too. Jennison McIntyre, Alice John, my goodness there. Glad to have you all on for this evening's program. Yes. All right, so let's get going. Our guest this evening is Major Merna Riley desVignes. Major, good evening to you.
Good evening, Mike, and good evening to all our viewers on the World Wide Web. It's good to have you.
Yes. It's such a pleasure to have you on. And you have so many hats that you wear and so many areas of competency, but we're happy that you're going to pull out some of that into this evening session on repairing the gender tier. And I want to start off by giving you a recent story that that I've experienced having to sit down. I do group sessions with boys and men. And I was sitting down with a young man, 17 years old, and he was giving me the story that he's not his mother taught him how he should treat women. And so the courtesies of standing if there is a limited seats and sitting, giving it to a woman has been his method that he has been taught all the way growing up. And the whole idea of if something drops from a woman, you pick it up. It has nothing to do with whether she could do it or not. And I think my heart rended today, that this week, when I was chatting with the young man, and the young man said that he told his mother, the generation of women today is not like the generation of women of her days. He's no longer doing that for women because they do not appreciate it. I felt touched by that, and I asked him to give me why is it he came to that, and he said, well, he was in an event and he surrendered his seat to a standing woman, and the kind of heckling he got from not only the woman who he offered to, who refused to take the seat, but her other friends that publicly humiliated him. He said, I'm not going through this again. No, I had to try and rescue that young man's ego and his thinking that he has just started by telling him not all women like that. So clearly there is a gender tier that is being evident. And I could carry on with so many other illustrations, but I'll start off with that. I'll give some as we go along. Where did this all come from? Do you know?
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Now, before we can look at where it came from, it's very important for us to talk about what is gender, because a lot of times when people think about gender, they think about gender in terms of the biological, in terms of the physiological terms of it. However, gender is more complex than that. We talk about the socially constructed roles, the activities, the behaviors that society gives to both men and women. And these roles are going to vary based on whether it's the socio-economic, the political, the cultural context, etc. And it affects you across religions and ethnic groups. All right. So that's one of the first things. And then maybe as we look at it, and even as I relate to that story, we look at what has been the traditional role of men and women, because that also is going to set the stage for us to look at it. So traditionally, men have been seen as the decision makers, the protectors, the breadwinners, etc. And women were more like the homemakers. All right. But all of that has changed. Again, traditionally, maybe before the 90s and so, a lot of emphasis was placed on male education. You're finding now that there's a shift in dynamics, because you find that women are becoming more educated, and maybe from around the 1990s coming forward, women are more educated. They have more economic power than men, and so they tend to be asserting themselves more. And so the story that you just shared with that young man is that some women tend to look at it as if I didn't ask you for a seat. I don't need you to help me out. I'm not weak. So that sort of thing sort of discourage our men. And as in the case of that young man, the embarrassment which happens, etc. But if we are going to look at gender tier, it makes sense for us to contextualize it and to ask ourselves, what are we looking at? How do we contextualize this tier? Is it social, as in the case of that young man, because that would sort of fall within the social? Is it economic? Is it educational, or is it the whole issue of empowerment and physical? So we need to maybe explore some of those things, because clearly we can see what is happening there. He's cultured a certain way. He's brought up a certain way in terms of how men are supposed to treat women, but because of the possibly the shifting in dynamics and how women do themselves now and see, then we have challenges like this occurring.
Mm-hmm. And when you see it happening more and more, the question is, at which point do we rein it in? So just as that gentleman, I've had my own personal experience. Actually, I was heading to the station to do a night program. So I was late for the program. It was an 8 o'clock program. I remember it distinctly. And I'm passing through one of the villages. The street is dark. There's no lights on the street. And I'm passing through under speed. I saw a Suzuki Jeep being pushed by a woman. This is almost 8 o'clock because I'm late for the program, so it's not broad daylight. Being pushed by a woman with a child standing on the seat, steering it while she pushed it. I passed straight because the program was going live, and I said, I can't really, don't have the time for this. But then my mother's voice came in my head. I said, she will cry shame on me. So I said, it is rather I lead for the program and help us. So I jammed brakes, throw in the reverse, and came back. And I'm jumping out and said, may I help you? And she turned to me and said, quite shocking to me, why? If it was a man, would you have stopped? Is it because I'm a woman? I really could not. I didn't have the energy that hour the night to be able to do that. I jumped in my vehicle. I put in my first gear and I left. Was that necessary?
Maybe the question I'd ask then, Mike, is what is it that is causing persons to behave in this manner? Is it a means of asserting self? Is it self-preservation?
Well, I hope this is where you come in to give us that answer, because certainly I don't have the answer.
Okay. Well, you see, those are some of the things that we have to look at, and we have to go deeper than to just look at it like this. And maybe if we come back to the whole context of things, we have to maybe step back to move forward. All right. So let's just step back a little bit. And I would have mentioned earlier that traditionally you have the roles established, because as it relates to gender, you have roles that are established for men, roles that are established for women. But because of the change in terms of the whole educational and economic situation, you find now that women are in a different position. So women have now become shared breadwinners because they are better off from an academic standpoint, and that's clearly demonstrated by research. It's not just Trinidad and Tobago. Yes.
But my question is, what does that have to do with economics? What does that have to do with how much you work for?
It has everything to do with it, Mike, because the bottom line is how they now view themselves. Persons view themselves as not, if you try to help me, you might be telling me that I am needy. So I need to assert myself to tell you that I can manage, I can do it as good as you can do it.
So do we now have to work that through our heads in knowing whether we come to the assistance of somebody? I'm just asking, is it something that we have to now process and say, okay, this woman looks as though she probably independent, works for more, so therefore she doesn't need my help, and selects somebody else? I'm not too sure. And I'm sure that women have their own stories about us with men as to some of the biases that we ourselves have. And I really want some of those to come out so that we'll hear from the audience also some of the challenges that the women have, so that we could find a way to resolve this issue. Yeah. So because the young man is saying, the 17-year-old young man, 18-year-old young man is saying that he's not going to be doing this anymore because he can't stand that embarrassment. How are we to navigate that?
How are we doing that today?
Veronica on Facebook says she was disrespectful. Lamini says frustration. Good night. Okay. Good evening from Woodbridge, Virginia. Yes, Joan. Thank you very much, Joan Phillips Spear. Florence. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Right. So a lot of this goes back to the home. And remember, I talk about gender being in terms of roles that society ascribed. And society has changed some of that role. Society has changed some of the roles in terms of how women function and how men function now. So simple things like opening the door, getting up and give you a seat, etc. Persons see themselves as not needing it. I don't need it. Maybe one of the things is for us to begin from the home and in different social groups to help our ladies to learn how to accept some of these things, because it doesn't make them any less if they do that. But also to demonstrate the appreciation for our men, because like that 17-year-old now who feels that because this one person did that, then he's not going to do it for anybody else. And that is sort of because of the embarrassment and the lowering of his esteem, how he feels about himself and how he now starts to view. And that might impact how he treats other females. On the other hand, some females seem to think that maybe right or maybe wrong, but some females seem to think that whenever a man stops, either offer assistance or so forth, there's an underlying something to it. They are trying to make a move, and this is it. And so one way of keeping them off is to do that. But as I said before,
that might really come from what men have done historically. So we have gotten ourselves in a situation where we are no longer trusted to do things out of the graciousness of heart. I suspect that might be part of the consequences of some of the ways we've been treating women over the years.
That's in fact a truth as well. And so it's like Peter paying for Paul. So because of how women have seen men and have been treated by men, then this takes place. But we cannot continue society as it is. We have to make a change. And as I said before, Mike, you see, we're looking at it like this evening. But my thinking is that for us to really get a full grasp of because what we are seeing are symptoms. The female responding to the male, these are symptoms of deeper issues within society.
Right.
And
yes.
too often what we do, we deal with the symptoms while the major issue remains underneath, right? And the major issues are not addressed and so forth. So
do you have any ideas what might be some of those major issues that we might be, or we need a sociological insight into that?
No, all right, because as I said before, when we look at the change in roles, because society ascribes certain roles to genders, okay? And so we have the change that is taking place. We have power dominance. You will have women now that are more economically stable. Another thing that you also find happening is that because of the shift in terms of the education, a lot of our young men are dropping out of school more. A lot of women are more educated. But what you find is that a lot of women are, what they say, marrying down or choosing partners down. You call it the shifts in educational parents. So educational hypogamy, right? Where you find that persons, and it is becoming more prevalent. And so you have that creating that shift in terms of what is taking place. And there's this feeling of, I am earning more, I have more economic power, so I can make decisions more. I do not need your assistance with anything.
What should that be? I see somebody referring here Edward Jones said, I think it's disrespect, especially when they demand respect from men. And I see somebody here, Sandra Brown, saying more economic and economical educational status should not lead to disrespect. I think it is the disrespect and the almost disregard for the help. Because sometimes when the offer to help has nothing to do that you cannot do it, is the offer to be gracious in the process, and I think one of the things that I want to point out here is the kind of embarrassment that some are getting, that bugs many of the guys. I was at a school one day waiting to do a session with the school children, and we were at the top of the school, and a teacher arrived in her car. So we saw her down there, arrived, and she opened her back door, came out from the driver's seat, opened her back door, and it is, how teachers load up, because she wrote, answered, marked papers all night. So she's coming now with all these papers. So she has a handbag. She has another bag with all those papers. Apparently, she has a bag where she brought her lunch, and she's struggling with all of these, or what I call struggling. A young man ran from the top stairs, ran downstairs, and said, Miss, let me help you. And the teacher said, no, I could handle this. It's not too heavy for me. After he ran all the way down the stairs. Now, the children heard and saw that, because they saw the excitement he went to help Miss, and laughed him and heckled him. And I saw the dejection in his face, and I went and located the boy, and again having to tell him, this is not a general position. But how often are you going to go through this? Because the question that the young man asked me, how would I know who will accept it and who would not? You understand? So it's a painful thing, particularly for these young boys. And so what we're going to have is what I saw in Trinidad, where some school children had finished school, and they had the library, Nalis. And one girl, her bag fell off and all her papers started to blow in the wind. And there was a boy sitting down, and he passed right by his feet, and he did not even bend down and pick it up. No, that is almost sacrilege to not have done that. And she's running down all of these papers. And I had to ask the boy, and let's go and help her to gather them. No, sir.
And maybe he did that because of experience that he may have had, or he may have seen others had. And, one of the things, maybe, Mike, that we can help, I'm here thinking that we need to help our folks, not just our male, but our women, as it relates to emotional intelligence, because we have to be able to consider how others feel and how we manage that. Because
yes,
you may not
both of them.
You may not, right, both, it goes across the gender. The sexes, you may not feel like you need help, but the mere fact that someone has offered to help you, especially if it's in front of other persons, you could graciously accept. One of the things I would say to persons, though, especially the men, before you say, let me help you, is basically ask, would you like some help? Because, I can ask you if you would like some help. It's okay if you say you don't need some help. But and there's a different stint, as if I say, let me help you with that. I'm no longer asking you, would you like my help? I'm saying, here, let me help you. And then persons take that a different way, as if I didn't ask you for it. And we have to start training our persons, and it starts training our boys and our girls from young. And unfortunately, we have that breakdown taking place from in the home. So we have to start training them from young in terms of how to tune into other people's emotions, how to think about others, how to recognize others' feelings. And so you're not doing it just for yourself. You're thinking about the impact that it has on the other person. But I also think, Mike, that it's very important for us to help our young men. And I appreciate the fact, and I can understand the fact that when I a young man gets humiliated, like you described, in public, then the natural tendency is to withdraw and decide, I'm not facing this again, I'm not going to do that. But it's also to help them how to manage that. Because if you close up at the first time that somebody throws you off, or you don't get the response you're looking for, then what is going to happen is that we will not move forward. So how do you deal with disappointments? How do you deal with difficult persons? How do you deal with it? And we have to help our young men, because the fact is, a lot of them are not getting this guidance in the home. And yes, that young man, his mommy might have told him how to treat, but how do you deal with persons who are not accepting or are not seeing things the same way as you are, right? But we also have to teach both of our genders, male and the female, the importance of respecting each other. Because as I talk about respecting each other, Mike, I come back to the issue of the shift in terms of gender roles in society, in terms of females and so forth. I have heard men who are in very prominent position say, I feel inadequate around my spouse, right? But on the other hand, I have seen, I talked about the hypogamy earlier on, where you find that women, more educated women, tend to get involved or have spouses that are at a lower educational level. And I have seen in the past where some of those same women embarrass these men in public, either by trying to correct their English or trying to do something. And I'm saying that we have to develop the whole issue of learning to respect each other, learning to build up each other, and thinking about each other. So the whole issue of emotional intelligence now becomes very important.
I think that you hit a point there of a solution right there. I think we really need to bring somebody on to talk about emotional intelligence, because I think it is so sadly lacking in our society. I see a texter. Let me just remind people they could text us at 387-7553, 387-7553, or they can call 868. Just put 868 before it if you are calling from out of Trinidad and Tobago. 868-387-7553. So I want to read a couple of things on Facebook, and I want to read this text that came in. If I was a man, would you ask? Okay. But he's saying, I think this person is saying, would a woman ask a man if she can help? I don't know if that is it. A woman will say something like that because of their own experiences with men asking to assist women, and then the man turn around and start getting personal. Sometimes it's a matter of trust. Okay, I think I understand what he's saying, which is exactly what you imputed when you said that because we as men have been very subtle, as soon as we get an inroad, we start harassing the person. Sometimes even from the job, you go on the job space and you're doing a transaction. Somebody helps you out, and you may have had access to their cell phone number in order so that you could be able to be updated as to what it is. It was purely a business arrangement, and the person was just being gracious and kind. But now in the night, you are ringing their cell phone, and it has nothing to do with the business. So I think that is what the person is talking about, that trust issue, that you do something and there is nothing else that you're pushing for that. And I think we have breached that so often that we're beginning to suffer from the ills of that.
Right. And we also need to keep in mind, Mike, that you speak about that point, the importance of respecting other people's boundaries.
Boundaries. Because, absolutely.
Yes, that becomes very, very important. Respecting other person's boundaries. And sometimes that's why we have this shift that is taking place. because persons do not recognize when to keep things business and to maintain respect the boundaries of others. So that's going to be very important as well.
And I'm thinking also that a woman who smiles back at the man when the man says hello and she smiles back in courtesy and so on, I think sometimes we take that wrongly. She's being nice, and we started, hey, must be somebody that like me or that I could try and harass, and then you now pursue with all of these unnecessary, annoying talks that the person does not want. And even I've seen where when the woman continues to walk and ignore you, that sometimes the men would begin to utter some very shameful things at the woman because she's not going to be responding to his overtures. And that may cause some women to just assume, you see me, I can't be fighting up with all of this.
I think sometimes too, Mike, and I'll share an example with you that sometimes persons, unfortunately, some males believe that they are entitled.
God's gift to women.
They are entitled because I recall, well, years ago, I worked in a hospital setting, and I remember one of the professionals in the hospital saying that he thought his thinking is that another member or other members of a similar profession in the organization belong to them. So, and he had this concept. So they belong. So that means when we want, we can get. So that is something that entitlement with persons think about as well, that you have to recognize that we have to respect persons' right to say no. I am not interested in you. I do not want to have a relationship. I can be friendly without being your friend. So I can smile, I can be cordial, but I don't necessarily want to be your friend. I'm just being polite to you. And we have to recognize and we have to be able to respect. And I think what has happened a lot in our society is that level of respect and regard for each other, and I go back to each other's boundaries, have broken down. And because those things have broken down, and people take offense. And then again, one of the things that I find that's happening in our society, and it comes back again, Mike, to the emphasis on the whole education and the whole social training. Sometimes, unfortunately, some of our men, because they have either dropped out of school, because they have not advanced educationally, may feel a little bit inadequate or inferior. And especially if you call to a female who you believe is at a higher education standard, the tendency is to say, you think you're better than me. That's why you are not responding to me, right? And we have to, so we have a lot of work to do on both sides of the fence. Because unfortunately, while we tend to focus a lot on how men treat women, there is also the issue of how some women treat men. And unfortunately, sometimes we do not focus on that. As soon as we start to talk about gender issues, we look at how the women are suffering. And yes, women are having a hard time, but we also have to recognize that on the other side, the men are also having challenges as well. And so it comes to the point where we have to be prepared to work together.
Yes. Let me say, you're a charming young lady. Well, I still qualify you as young. Charming young lady, successful. So I'm sure that there are some people in your space who have attempted to push the boundaries. I'm not going to ask you how you have dealt with it, but this is one that I'm suggesting. I'm sure that you would have dealt with them quite well. And I'm wondering if we can get a group of persons, women, who would be able to call a conference, a Zoom session, and say, let's let's talk about how we respond to men, and then we do something for the men also. How do you really approach a woman and allow her boundaries, etc.? um, and then we do something with both the men and the women, and as part of that healing process, so that we'll be able to recognize that we can afford to work along with each other without disrespecting, crossing boundaries, and recognizing that when somebody is not interested, they are just not interested. And that is not an insult to not to be interested. It's just that that's a choice that they have, and they have exercised that right for choice. Would you be open to such a workshop?
Most definitely. I would be open to such a workshop, and I think it has benefit in it. One of the things I also do believe though is that we have to we have to face the fact, and the research has shown that a number of our young men, because of shifting dynamics, they are suffering from the issue of low self-esteem. I know that you've been doing some work with boys, which is quite commendable, but I think more emphasis has to be placed on boys, because somehow I feel that our boys who become our men,
Yes,
that
yes,
are
yes,
are
yes.
are we term in society as problem men. Some of our boys are being neglected in a lot of ways. And
Mm-hmm,
these are the boys that grow up to be men. So
mm-hmm.
they are neglected. I was reading this school report that was put out, and it talks about teachers indicating that they don't have time to try with these boys who are given problems in school. So the first course of action is to expel them and to get
Yes,
them out of
yes,
school.
yes,
But
yes,
when
yes,
we
yes.
expel them and we get them out of school and nobody focuses on them, then the downward slide just
Mm-hmm.
continues where they are concerned. So if we're going to look at this, we also have to focus on how do we help our young males to build their self-esteem. We talk about underperforming young men, but is it that they don't have the potential, or is it that they're not motivated? How do we get them to move up, to reach a stage? Because when there is this difference in terms of how you think and how you relate, and if you start to feel inferior to the other person, then that's where we have problems coming in. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of work that we have to do, Mike, in terms of
Yeah.
helping our young men to build their self-esteem, and helping our young men to advance themselves, but also helping our young women to recognize that we also need to be able to respect.
Right. Um, and I want us to make sure that we move it from talking to action. So I'm happy that you have accepted. The other lady that I'm thinking about, and I'm sure that there'll be other women who would want to volunteer, but this I don't know if you remember Joan Phillips Peer, because while you were probably CEO of the health sector, I know that she would have brought a team from the States to do free medical help on the island. And I don't know if you recall her, but she's from here. She's a Tobagonian. And I think that she would be a great asset if we gather together a number of successful, and as I see somebody put here regarding you, powerful woman that was all right, Sandra. We got that Sandra Brown. Yes, she's a powerful woman. Um, those type of people, because let's face those powerful, successful women, and let the women talk to the women and the young girls, etc. And then let's have something with the men, and let's talk to the men, and then let's bring them both together, and let's bring a nice, cohesive program that we're going to roll out from here.
One
We're
of
going to
the
go to.
things too, Mike, as you talk about, I'm thinking,
Okay, let me just tell the director that we will be coming to a break as soon as Major is finished with her statement.
right, we need to ensure that we get male models to deal with our men, because too often we have females going to speak to the males about how the males should be. We need men to speak to men. We need men to help our men to be men.
If you were on a pulpit, we should pass the collection after that. You just preach them, madam. I'm telling you. All right, let's take a break. We come right back. Major Merna Riley desVignes heating up the place for us this evening. We'll be right back.
In today's society, we need security that is trustworthy, reliable, and efficient. Rapid Response Security Services Limited is here to meet all your needs. Since 1990, this security company leads while others follow, with a commitment to provide satisfaction in service. We specialize in modern and professional security systems. Contact us at 639-3675 or 660-7418 or visit us at the Blue and White Building, Mount Mary, Scarborough, Tobago.
Double B Supermarket, 60 to 62 Government House Road, Scarborough, Tobago. All items reasonably priced, friendly staff. If you don't believe me, you call them 639-5329. If you ask them any question, they'll tell you Jesus is the answer.
Don't let the weather of the day dictate your pace. I stayed cool every time I got into my vehicle, and you can too. At Tow School Center of 31 Gaskin Bay Road, Bonaccord, they specialize in auto air conditioning with parts and services catering to your car's needs. Call and ask for tows at 660-8777 or 788-3535. Tow School Center, where a comfortable ride is a cool ride.
Okay, just remember you can text us, send us a WhatsApp 387-7553 and or send your question or your comment on your Facebook, or you could call us at 868. Just put that number before the number if you're calling outside of Trinidad and Tobago. Major Merna Riley desVignes is our guest in studio. We're talking about repairing the gender tear. And so she's given us some ideas to work with, and we plan to really act upon them. Emotional intelligence happens to be one of the major areas that we need to help training our people with. A long time, Major, there was something called finishing school for girls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we need to bring that back. Let me just go to the Facebook. Joan has accepted our invitation to be part of the session.
Awesome.
So I look forward to that. Joan, it is the Bovell Cancer Diabetes Foundation in Roxborough that they have been giving such human service to Tobagonian, and many times at their own cost in many of the cases and sacrifice. So we're happy to have that. Somebody also said, train up the child well, so no matter what, must continue to exercise what was taught. And I see Joan said that on work, she would say good morning, and sometimes she gets no answer, and sometimes have to say it louder, and then they would apologize and say sorry, or sometime in an elevator. Yeah, you see that so often, that sometimes you say good morning, they look up, they realize they don't know you, so they don't need to answer you because they don't know you. But we have so much work to do. All right. So like and share the page, like and share the thing. It's going to be on the YouTube LABL, LABL, LABL TV network. It will be on YouTube even after the program, so you could go back and visit it. Michael Brown said he's now tuning in from Jamaica. Thank you, Michael, for coming on. We appreciate, late you are, but we appreciate you having you on. Timothy Benjamin is saying, is it possible for a male to be intimidated in his girlfriend or spouse because of physical appearance? I don't know whether it means that she's not so glamorous and he is, or whether he's not too comely and she is.
It's Mike, because society places a lot of emphasis on how people look. And again, if it is you have a male who is not comfortable and confident in himself, who does not have that self-esteem that is up there, and he has a spouse, a girlfriend that looks pretty good from a physical perspective,
a small E.
then what is going to happen is that if she stops to speak to someone, or if she gets a call, it could be a business call or otherwise, then the person starts to feel very insecure. And something like that sometimes can lead to intimate partner violence.
Yes.
Sometimes
yes.
that's how it starts. And it comes back again to the whole low self-esteem, the whole insecurity, because the jealousy comes into place. And again, the whole trust factor. So it's very important for persons to build on that. And I often say to persons that relationships should not be about competition. Relationships should be about partnership and persons working together. Whether it is that you have a higher education or you're earning more money or whatever than I am, if we decide to be together, it should be about how we can build each other and developing that trust so that we can move towards each other. But you have to be comfortable with yourself first before you can even work with anybody else. So understanding you, appreciating you, and working with yourself first.
Yes. Veronica Joseph says insecurity issues. If the gentleman is a handsome fella, and the woman is lacking in the looks area, I think that sometimes what you have is that the gentleman thinks that he is almost like a jackpot, and yeah, and sometimes you might find that the gentleman treats her in a kind of way that is less than honorable, because he figures she's not going to leave me anyway, because where is she going to go? I'm so handsome and she lacks it. And that also has its own issues in bringing it up. Preach it, sister. Somebody telling you to preach it. Partnership versus possession. Sandra Brown. Okay. I had a very interesting situation. A group of us, we have a certain philosophy of this relationship business. But there was that one gentleman in our group who says, women don't like you treat them good. If you treat them bad, they'll be committed. So we are trying to convince him that that's a flawed thinking, and so on. And every day we meet, he would always have that mantra, because he said that is how he has learned it and that works for him. So one day, my friend is giving his illustration of something that was going on. We were just talking. It wasn't linked to this now, and he's just talking that he would go to travel some of his occasions for business. And one of his business trips, he's going overseas. I think it was England or somewhere there, or somewhere. And he said he would surprise his wife, bought her a ticket. He knew that one of the excuses his wife would make is that who is going to take care of the children. So he arranged with her sister to handle the children and pack her clothes. So his wife now drives him to the airport thinking that she's just dropping him off and returning home. And then he pulls out the ticket, and she started to say, oh, I'm going, but what is going to happen with the children? And then the sister appeared and said, oh, I will take care of the children, but I didn't walk with any clothes. The bags came out. We were in awe of that discussion. There was a lady at the table who got up and said, and this is a true story, she got up and said, you see, that's how all a man does things. The poor woman had no choice in this. Or they just figure because all is man, or we just decide that a woman should supposed to go on a trip and don't even consult with her. And the young man who has always said, treat them bad, got up and he said, I told you guys. And he walked away. And we were just there in shock. And she sat there and she plowed into that gentleman over and over and over again. We had to tell the lady, enough, lady. You understand? Because his wife wasn't upset. His wife was crying all the way onto the plane with joy, hugging him and kissing him many times and so on. And she would not relent. So I'm saying that this thing is really, really serious. And we need to find a way to be able to resolve this, because there are many women who are longing for this treatment. I'm telling you, because there are women who are very, very gracious and very receiving. And if we pull back, and I'm talking to the men here now, if we pull back, we will be pulling back from those who want it and who will be appreciative of it. We can't pull back because of the few that have this problem, and probably speaking for so many other people. Yeah.
And it's interesting that you said that, Mike, because I was going to ask you, well, how did the wife respond? Because sometimes other persons looking on behave certain ways out of jealousy, they're not getting that. And therefore, they don't believe anybody else should get it. But, unfortunately, we do have men and women who believe that you have to treat each other bad for them to stay around. As a child growing up, I never forget this. There was a teacher in my community who I once overheard tell my mother that if her husband don't beat her, she don't think he loves her. And I was a child at that point in time. So unfortunately, again, society has conditioned persons. And so we have to break the chain. We have to recognize, therefore, that you love, you trust, you function as a partner, you do not compete. It's not what you're going to do, it's how we're going to do it together. Because again, that wife, I guess she recognizes that, listen, my husband is a thoughtful person. I need to get a break. He's organized everything. But somebody else will look at it as control. So how do you view the attention that is given? How do you see it as coercive and control? And then again, it goes back to possibly the relationship they had before. Because if the relationship you had with the person is one where the person has a very tight control, you can't talk to persons, because we know that exists. You can't talk to persons, you can't wear this, you can't go here. And that's a different dynamics, as opposed to someone who genuinely cares for you. And so we have to be able to recognize when that happens and to appreciate it. And I'm a female, but as females, we need to be able to allow our men scope to do things for us, even when we can do it ourselves. We have to reach the point where we can allow them to do things and to recognize them for their work. Because too often, as we talk about this war and whatever, too often we have male bashing, too often. And I do recognize, I'm not downplaying the fact that we have a significant problem taking place in society between the genders, etc. But we need to also recognize that our men need to be recognized, our men need to be appreciated, and we need to work together as one, respect and love each other.
Veronica said that the lady was too fast in people business the wrong way. If the wife not upset, so what is her story? All right. What a pity. Yeah, let me just pick up some of the things. 387, let me see. I think there is a text that I need to attend to here now. Would you say that those people grew up with lack of love and attention, most likely in the domestic violence? That's the question from the texter.
All right, so my understanding of the question is that persons who can't share love maybe grew up in an area where they had lack of love and violence. That might be the question the person is asking. Hopefully that is. And it doesn't always work, but it is one of the factors that affect persons, because usually you find the persons who grow up in an environment where they do not have love, they do not have attention, they they do not learn how to share that. And sometimes as well, when they grow up, either seeing they may not be the victims of, well, physical victims of abuse, because once you're around and someone else is getting abused, it affects you psychologically, right? It affects you psychologically. So you find children who grow up in homes where there has been domestic abuse, physical abuse, father beating mother, mother beating father, etc. And sometimes those children believe that that's the way to go. That's how I control the person who is around me. And let us not fool ourselves. It's not just about men doing it. I remember at one point, a young man called me and told me he's about to go and drink some Lanate because this lady was pulling him up in the public and locking the door, and he can't get to go to work. And his mother brought him up not to hit women. And so he was at a point of frustration. So as we look at all of this, we have to look at how do we help our men and how do we help our women, because we cannot deal with it lopsided. Both sides have to come together if we're going to work through this.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me see what's happening here. Cecil Millington said he had a neighbor once who was beaten by his boyfriend, and she said that if he didn't beat me, he don't love me, which is the story that you just gave.
Yes, and it is very sad. It is very sad that we're at that place in society where that is what feeds some of the good thing is that it's not all around, and persons know how to recognize the worth of others and to accept good things.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we're coming down to the end of the program. We're going to have the poll. I hope that people have responded to the poll, and let's see. We get the poll results as to whether you all prefer 8 o'clock or a 9 o'clock session. We are on every Thursday around this time, and we invite you to Mike at Night and to share all of your ideas. Coming out of today, we're going to execute some of the suggestions that we got from Major Merna Riley desVignes. She shared as how we're going to go about it. It cannot be solved on this one program. It has to be multifaceted, it has to be repetitive, and it has to be expanding wide into a number of areas. We have to talk probably to schoolgirls, young girls, and young boys, go to the schools and talk with them, etc. All right. I think we had a caller. So 387-7553. You could call us, and if you have a question to pose to Major desVignes, please call us. That is 387-7553. All right. Anything else that you want to share with us? All right. I think the poll results are up. Okay. Hello. Good evening. Hello. Let me make sure that we getting you. Are you there? Are you hearing? Are you hearing the person, Major?
No, I'm not.
Hello, good day. Good night.
Yes, I'm hearing now.
All right. Yes. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I just wanted, in light of, I think a lot of what was said tonight focused on our young men and our men being in a position of maybe intimidation, lack of self-esteem, lack of performance at the school level. And I'm just asking, is there going to be, maybe a push? I think it was even said in the program before that even some teachers are just not willing to fight with them anymore. But I have two daughters, and when I look at the school curriculum, when I look at the examples given, even in the essay and the English at a primary school level, they always have the girls as examples in very good terms, Janet was excellent today when you want to find, what is the past participle or whatever it is. But Johnny was miserable as usual. So could the context be, okay, Johnny was an excellent A student, right? But Martha was too talkative in class. So that what you do is that at that level, at 7 years old and at 6 years old, you don't already inculcate in them that, listen, boys are bad, boys are degenerate, boys are sick, boys are always playing the fool, girls are always the good ones. So I'm saying even at that level, curriculum could balance it out a little, so that boys don't come up growing up being victims of this gender bias, which I think is the real gender bias.
Caller, did you not recite in primary school, girls are made of sugar and spice and everything nice, and boys are made of snails and puppy dog tails?
Snails and puppy dog tails. That's what little boys are made
it has been historical that the boys have been given that bad rap.
Yeah. So boys, why should boys grow up wanting to be men when every star of every show is depicted as having a dysfunctional father? Right? Every show. Every advertisement that is shown on TV shows an intelligent woman and a stupid man. The woman always has to explain to the man something. Every Law and Order show you watch as a female judge, right? So what is it that society is telling our young boys that they can aspire to be, especially when they are at an impressionable age, like 7 or 8? So that's my point.
We probably should have a show that would talk about, because you just raised some very insightful areas there, that subtly we have been fed a certain diet. Because I'm thinking of an ad that I see on television now that you said that, that talking about when you have hurricane and he say, Johnny, don't do that. His wife is telling him, I'm shouting at him, as though he's such a stupid man to be going and trying to light the stove when the gas may be exposed and so on. And every time he goes to do something,
the rest of the show off the camera.
Yes, thanks. So every time he goes something, so he really appears as stupid and not able to think, and she's shouting at him and so on. But I want us also to point out that in many situations, we've also, when you look at the whole gender thing, we've also subtly been giving the woman a bad rap in some of the things that we've said, some of the names we call people. So if a man is unfaithful, he's given a certain, he's a village ram. You understand? He's given certain praiseworthy slangs on it. And if a woman is caught in a situation where she's doing something similar to that, the kind of words that are used really are more insulting than anything else. When both people were doing something that would have been wrong. You understand? So we should probably have a discussion on some of the nuances in society that lend itself to these things. Black is bad, black cat, and so on. All right, yes. John is saying that, yes, some of those words and so on. So that gives us another idea right there to be able to talk about that thing. All right, so we're down to the end of the program. Any final words, Major?
Yes, Mike, thank you. Because I'm thinking there are things that we can do as we move forward, even from now. And one of the things I get back to the home, and some of the things the scholars spoke about, within the homes, we need to start looking at equal treatment for our girls and our boys. It's very important for us to give the boys the same treatment that we give to our girls. Within our schools, we need to make sure that we put the emphasis on our boys just as much as we push the girls forward. And that is going to be very important. And to recognize that we don't just discard our boys because they are having issues. Again, we look at esteeming each other. And I have to end the scripture passage. Philippians 2, 3, and 4 tell you, do not do anything out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourself. Because if each of you look not only on your own interest, but look on the interest of others, then we can move forward. And that is where I think I want us to start thinking. Let us not consider just ourselves, but let us look at the other person. If you choose to be with someone, let us look at how we can build, not a competition, but a partnership. And let us work at bridging that divide and working together in terms of helping our men. Work on the emotional intelligence. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of things that we have to do. This is just scratching the surface, and we can do it, but we have to work if we want to have a better society.
Thank you very much. Major Merna Riley desVignes, successful, and as the people say on Facebook here regarding her, powerful woman. Yes, sir. That's right. Hello, let me tell you, if you are around a successful, powerful woman and you're a man, you're in good company. Trust me. Yes, sir. No need to be intimidated or afraid of that. Once she is, and once those people, as has been said, are comfortable with themselves, you have nothing to fear. They are very nice people. I've worked with some of them already, and they don't have an issue. Them good. Yeah. All right, so this is Mike at Night, and the statistic says that 24% of persons want it at 8 o'clock, but 76%, I think it said that they want it for 9 o'clock. So we shall remain so far at 9 o'clock. We'll be with you next week. Of course, we're going to bring you another exciting program. We're going to have some other persons, and we are going to bring that conference, that workshop, and we're going to bring together some really nice people, some people who will be able to bring some value to us to help do this. We can make this. We can do better for our children. We can do better for our boys and our girls. I'm telling you. So next week, Thursday, yes, 24 and 76%. Yes. So next week, Thursday, we'll be on 9 o'clock as usual. Stand by for more on Mike at Night on Thursday. Thank you very much to our director. Sydney Jones is the one behind the consoles this evening. And thank you very much. These topics need more time. That's what somebody said. All right, Veronica, who knows? We might be able to get. Let's get some sponsors and we could go for more time. No problem. Only never to see women throw their power around. All right. Bye-bye. Catch you all now. God bless you all.
In today's society, we need security that is trustworthy, reliable, and efficient. Rapid Response Security Services Limited is here to meet all your needs. Since 1990, this security company leads while others follow, with a commitment to provide satisfaction in service. We specialize in modern and professional security systems. Contact us at 639-3675 or 660-7418, or visit us at the Blue and White Building, Mount Mary, Scarborough, Tobago.
Double B Supermarket, 60 to 62 Government House Road, Scarborough, Tobago. All items reasonably priced, friendly staff. If you don't believe me, you call them 639-5329. If you ask them any question, they'll tell you Jesus is the answer.
Don't let the weather of the day dictate your pace. I stayed cool every time I got into my vehicle, and you can too. At Tow School Center of 31 Gaskin Bay Road, Bonaccord, they specialize in auto air conditioning with parts and services catering to your car's needs. Call and ask for tows at 660-8777 or 788-3535. Tow School Center, where a comfortable ride is a cool ride.